Hi guys, pretty much as soon as the Brexit vote results came in, the European Union began its planning for a hard Brexit. It instructed countries to prepare for a worst-case scenario. This meant that while a significant amount of money was spent, the European border with Great Britain, which would become a third country, was ready or as close to ready as possible. The EU provided extra funding for new infrastructure, upgrades and other costs. What did the Tories do? Pretty much nothing. They told the public that nothing would change when it came to imports and exports. They saddled councils with extra costs to upgrade facilities, but couldn't tell them how much expansion was required, and they also told business a number of contradictory stories. Now, the more of Brexit that is implemented results in more costs for importers, a lot of which could have been avoided. Here Stella Creasy delivered a passionate speech about the problems involved.
Having left the EU, we do need border controls, but what is being proposed won't be controlled. It will be chaos. Now, the EU brought in checks in 2021, but this government has delayed doing that 5 times. And in that time, they could have negotiated an SPS deal to avoid the mess that is about to happen. Instead, from Wednesday, for the first time, 2.7 million lorries will need to be stopped at Dover so their contents can be checked, and another 4 million will require a health certificate for the animal products they carry. On top of this, 5 million of them will have to pay a common user charge for the privilege of importing goods deemed medium or high risk, whether or not they're inspected. The costs to business, which we know will be passed on to consumers, are horrendous and chaotic, these charges only being confirmed on the 18th of April. Now, the government has admitted that this will cause inflation, but they claim it's only 300 million over 0.2% over 3 years. Independent analysis shows it will be 10 times that, or £8 a month on the average food shop. Now, if the Minister wants to dispute this figure, will he finally publish the modelling that they've refused to disclose so we can see how they've come to their numbers? Because we know their numbers are wrong, because while they've confirmed that the direct cost of each lorry will be about £145 a time for that common user charge, they admit they haven't calculated how much the new veterinary checks will cost, with some running to hundreds of pounds. And they can't do that because they've told the European countries to set their own standards and charges. So how can the ministers tell us we can be confident when we don't know what will be passed to be healthy in Hungary, will be passed to be healthy in Germany or here? And if food standards matter to you, you will be disappointed because the minister has just admitted that only some checks are going to happen on those medium risk goods from Wednesday. So will he put a number on how many checks will happen from Wednesday? Because medium risk is anything of animal origin that isn't alive. But also it means beetroot and sweet corn. What a mess. Small businesses are going to be clobbered for a fee for a service they won't even get. And Sevington hasn't even been declared a border control post to do any of this. So goods coming into Dover, where will they be checked on Wednesday, especially if they are high risk? What about those other ports that can set their own charges around the UK? And who's going to enforce any of this? Government told industry to be prepared, but they won't check anything past 7 o'clock. Say goodbye to those just-in-time chains for perishable goods. And people coming back from holiday have no idea what their personal use is, so people could be stopped for carrying gorgonzola. With 36 hours to go, we need some straight answers. Our constituents can't eat the paperwork that this will create, nor afford the price rises it will increase. And corner shops, delis and restaurants will go bust, and our ports will be bunged up. There's still time to cancel a Brexit border tax, Minister. Please listen to concerns across the House and do so.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the Honourable Lady either chooses not to understand what is happening or deliberately tries to inflame a situation which I think will be of great benefit to the UK moving forward.
Mark Spencer, the DEFA Minister there, wanting people to believe more in Brexit. Ironically, he campaigned to remain. Anyway, Stella talked about a number of things here. First of all, SPS, sanitary and phytosanitary checks, which she's right about. The UK could have aligned with the EU with their standards at the time, but Brexiteers rejected the idea as politically unacceptable. This would have reduced the friction to trade and eliminated a lot of paperwork for business. Now, thankfully, Labour want to work out an SPS deal with the European Union, but this would require time and effort, and in the meanwhile, British businesses will have to continue with the current set of problems. Stella laid out the stark numbers of vehicles that need to be checked, all the while there isn't sufficient staff to carry out those checks. I remember doing a video recently where a port had to consider demolishing part of their building because well, there isn't the staff available to carry out the checks. Now, the minister was rightly called out over the cost to consumers. The brexiteer government has refused to release the modelling they've used to come up with their figures, which has been dismissed by experts. No doubt to protect the party and to protect Brexit. Stella also mentioned the extra veterinary checks, which will add hundreds of pounds to some consignments. A fundamental issue that she brought up also was how some ports close at 7 p.m. in the evening, which means late deliveries will be impossible for some companies. As Stella said, say goodbye to just-in-time manufacturing. And of course, the public may be impacted directly as checks will have to be carried out on individuals returning from Europe. Remember the "Welcome to the Brexit, sir" a few years back. The Labour MP called on the government to cancel what she called the Brexit border tax. But the only true way to cancel it is to rejoin the EU and the single market, something Keir Starmer has ruled out. So the best pro-EU MPs and Labour can expect is perhaps more transparency. But at least if businesses know more about them, they can plan ahead. As we've said before, the more Brexit is implemented, the worse it is. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.